Hey y'all! Today's lesson is solving two-step equations. So, a two-step equation contains, my hair is crazy, contains two operations. And when I say an operation, I'm talking about the four operations: add, subtract, multiplication, or division. So a two-step equation has two operations, and to solve a two-step equation, you have to undo each in reverse order. And when I say reverse order, I mean reverse order from the order of operations. So normally in the order of operations, you would do your addition, you would do your multiplication and division before your addition and subtraction. And I'm only talking about these four operations for right now. So to do them in reverse order means you would undo your addition and subtraction first, and then your multiplication and division. So that's what I mean by undoing them in reverse order. And sometimes it might change depending on if it's a multi-step, but for right now in two-step equations, the problems you see today, we're going to undo them in reverse order. So let's do some examples. Okay. I gotta just put my board down. All right, so example 1, solve the equations and check your answers. The nice thing about equations is you can, whatever you get for your answer, you can plug it back in, and then you know if you're right or wrong. So super, super nice with equations. So the first one, 3x plus 2 equals 20. 3x plus 2 equals 20. We're trying to figure out what this x is. And remember, we're going to work backwards in reverse order. So right now I have 3x, which means 3 times x. So here's my multiplication, and then plus 2, and then I have addition. So I'm going to undo the addition. So I have to subtract 2 on both sides. That's the subtraction property of equality. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And those subtract out to be 0. 3x equals 18. Now, most people, and I'll say it cancels, but the reason it cancels is because 2 minus 2 is 0, and that's the reason it cancels. Now I have 3 times x equals 18. I'm going to divide both sides by 3, the division property of equality. Those divide to be 1. They don't divide out to be 0. They don't cancel in the same sense, but 3 divided by 3 is 1, and I'm left with x equals 6. X equals 6. Now, to check our answer, we plug it back in. So we would say 3 times 6 plus 2. 3 times 6, and now we have to follow the order of operations. 3 times 6 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20, and that's what we were trying to get. So we did good with problem A. Let's sort through problem B. 5 plus 2x equals -1. So again, I have addition, and then I have multiplication. So I'm going to undo them in reverse order. I need to undo this addition. This 5 is positive. This is a positive 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. And then 5 minus 5 is 0. And so I'm left with 2x equals -6. -1 minus 5 is -6. I have 2x is 2 times x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And x equals -3. That is my solution. And then I want to check by plugging it back in. So I'm going to plug it back in right here. So I'm going to show you over here. 5 plus 2 times -3. So I'm just plugging it in. 5 plus 2 times -3. 2 times -3 is -6. And then 5 plus -6 is -1, which is what I wanted. So everything's good. Okay? So example C has this fraction 1/4 in it, but it doesn't really change anything right now. So I have multiplication and subtraction. I need to undo in reverse order, so I need to undo that subtraction. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And this is really a -3. -3 is really -3. So -3 and 3, those cancel. And I get 28 equals 1/4 x. So maybe you remember how to solve an equation that has a fraction as a coefficient. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, or you could divide by 1/4. I could divide by 1/4, But when you divide by a fraction, really, you're multiplying by the reciprocal. Dividing by a fraction and multiplying by a reciprocal are the same thing. So I'm going to multiply this side by the reciprocal. And I'm bringing my x down. Notice my x is on the right side of the equation, so I'm just going to leave it on the right side. 28 times 4, I don't know what that is off the top. I know 25 times 4 is 100. So this is going to be, what, 112. So 8 times 4 is 32. 4 times 2 is 8, 112. So could have used mental math. And then you would plug it back in to check. You would say 1/4 of 112 minus 3. Okay, so I want you to try this one on your own. Pause it. We're going to call this you try. Pause it, copy that down and try it on your own, and then press play when you're finished. All right, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And then 2/5 x equals 12. Now I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. Those are going to cancel because when you multiply by the reciprocal, you get 1. So I have 1x. And then 12 times 5. I'm going to cross cancel. So 2 and 12 are both even, which means you can divide them both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And so my answer is 30. 30. And then if you checked, 2/5 of 30 would be 60 divided by 12. 12 minus 5 is 7. So it works. Okay. So I've got some more examples for you. Now, these examples are a little bit different because the minus affects the variable. So I just wanted to kind of put a little note up here to pay attention to the difference in these. All right, still I have two equations. Not two equations. It's a two-step equation. I have two operations. Right here I have minus, and then right here I have multiplication. 6 minus 3x equals 21. I have to go in reverse order. So I have to undo the subtraction first. Well, the subtraction is the 3x, but that's multiplication. So I'm not undoing the multiplication. I need to get rid of this 6. I need to get rid of this 6 because that's part of the subtraction problem. I have to wait and do this multiplication second. So I need to get rid of this 6. Is this 6 positive or negative? This 6 is positive. So I need to subtract 6 in order to undo it, in order to reverse it, in order for it to cancel out. If you add 6, you're not actually canceling anything out because this 6 right here is positive. So 6 minus 6 is 0. And then I have negative 3x equals 15. Here is a common mistake. Students make it, and I've seen it, is they forget to bring down this negative. This minus is a negative. This minus means negative 3x. So just don't forget to bring that negative down. Now I can divide by negative 3 on both sides. And 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. I was making sure I didn't have any negatives. Okay, I did have that. All right? And then you would plug it back in. 6 minus 3 times negative 5. Negative 3 times negative 5 is 15. And so 6 plus 15 is 21. And so that works. All right, let's do B together. X divided by negative 3 minus 2 equals negative 18. So I have a division problem here, and then I have a subtraction problem. So I'm going to undo this minus 2 with plus 2. Negative 18 plus 2 is negative 16. And since this is division, you kind of have a choice. You can multiply by the reciprocal, which this is like 1/3. If I put a 1 here, this is negative 1/3. Or we can just multiply, because this coefficient is 1, we're just going to multiply by a negative 3 on both sides, which is the same, it's really the reciprocal. 1/3, the reciprocal is 3/1, which is 3. These are going to divide out or multiply and divide, and I get x equals, a negative times a negative is a positive, so positive 48. Positive 48. And then to check, I would plug it back in. 48 divided by negative 3 is negative 16. Negative 16 minus 2 is negative 18. Okay? So example C, 10 minus 2/3 x equals 52. So in here, we have this fraction, 2/3 x. And this, example C, is similar in example A in that you have a minus, so we have a subtraction, but then we have a multiplication. Now, this subtraction is really making the 2/3 negative. It has nothing to do with the 10. The 10 is positive. So we have to subtract 10 from both sides in order to cancel out the 10. And you get negative 2/3. Remember to bring that negative sign down. That's a common mistake. Students forget that negative sign all the time. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal means you flip it. So negative 3/2. And again, I'm keeping the negative because I want those negatives to multiply out to be a positive, because 2 negatives equal a positive. These cancel, meaning they multiply to be 1. And over here, I'm going to do some cross canceling. I see these are both even, so 2 will go into 2 once, 2 will go into 42 21 times, and now I need to multiply 21 times 3, and I get 63, and this is positive, this is negative, so negative 63. Negative 63. All right. Now, just for the sake of time, you try D and pause it and press play when you're ready. All right. So it's written, it's reversed. Our variable is on the right side of the equation, which is not normally how we see it. The 2, we need to undo the 2 first, and the 2 is positive. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And I get, let's see, negative 21 equals negative 3x. Negative 19 minus 2 is negative 21. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And x is equal to 7. X is equal to 7. I hope you got that. Okay. I have one more real world problem for you. All right. Real world problem. This is example 3. Melissa wants to put trim molding around a rectangular table. I don't even know what trim molding is, so ask, I guess it's like a border or something. The table's 45 inches long, and she has 150 inches of trim. Solve the equation. So they were so kind, they gave us the equation to find the width of the table, and don't forget your units. Whenever we have a real world problem, we always want to use our units to answer the real world problem. So what was the width? Here's our equation. A nice 2-step equation. Remember, we need to go in reverse order. So I need to undo this plus 90. And the variable is W because we're trying to find the width. The variable is W. 150 minus 90 is 60. We divide both sides by 2. And then we get 30. 60 divided by 2 is 30. So 30 inches is our width. 30 inches is our width. If you want to go back and check it, you would plug it in. 2 times 30 plus 90. And then 60 plus 90 is 150. All right? We are going to practice more 2-step equations in class soon.